Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. This week, we're bringing you a very special State of Texas. The race for U.S. Senate continues to draw national attention, and this weekend, Nexstar Media Group hosted a live stream debate ahead of the Democratic primary between the candidates, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Texas State Representative James Talarico. They met on Saturday in Georgetown outside of Austin on the stage at the Texas State AFL-CIO COPE convention. KXAN Austin's anchor Daniel Marin and Dallas Morning News political reporter Gromer Jeffers moderated the event. And for today's show, we will replay some of the most important questions and responses to help inform you ahead of the March primary.
In the context of electability, style matters. And the next question aims at outlining each of your styles.
And we'll start with Ms. Crockett. You have referred to your authenticity as your political superpower. You went viral for your clash with Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, and you've called Governor Greg Abbott Governor Hot Wheels. In 60 seconds, explain why that is the right style to win a U.S. Senate seat.
Listen, we are not looking at politics as usual. Just today, we just had another person gunned down in the streets in Minneapolis. And so for anyone that believes that we are going to be able to respond to this in a normal way, I think that they've got it wrong. But more importantly, when we talk about electability, how many of you have heard things like, we are the party of the educational elites? We've heard that over and over. We've heard things like, we are losing African-American men. We are losing Latinos. We have heard these things. Right now, we know when we look at our polling, when it comes to working class people, I am leading by 20 points. We know that I am leading when it comes to African-American men. We know that overall women are going to play a really big role in deciding who gets elected, and I am leading amongst women. So at the end of the day, when we look at the numbers are there. This is about whether or not we have the will, and right now, people are not happy with the Democratic Party. I've seen the polling. What they want is someone who is going to be unafraid in the face of what we are facing right now, which is someone who believes he's a king.
Mr. Talarico, before we get to your style, we do want to get your reaction to what Ms. Crockett just said. You'll have 30 seconds for this.
Well, I think the Congresswoman and I both agree that we have a moral imperative to win this election in November. If we don't win, we can't help people. I have seen the consequences in the trenches of the Texas legislature of losing elections. I've seen my constituents get hurt. I've seen rights that we took for granted rolled back. I've seen schools close. I've seen people not be able to access basic health care. So we have to win in November. I think she and I are committed to that. I hope all of us in this room are committed to that singular goal.
Mr. Talarico, you have said that your campaign is shaped by two commandments: love God, love your neighbor. But a lot of Democrats want a fighter. So why do you think that your approach is the right one to get you to Washington? And you have 60 seconds for this.
I don't think you should believe anything a politician says. I think you should look at what a politician has done. The best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. And the people in this room know that I have fought tooth and nail for our values in the Texas House of Representatives. I have gone toe-to-toe with the billionaires who are trying to dismantle public education in this state. Tim Dunn, Ferris Wilks, Betsy DeVos, Jeff Yass. Those same billionaires are now trying to dismantle public education at the federal level. I led the fight against Greg Abbott's private school voucher scam that would have taken money out of our underfunded schools and given it to wealthy parents who already have their kids in private school. Now those billionaires are introducing that same voucher scam at the federal level, and they're gutting the Department of Education. So we need a proven fighter for our schools, for our values, for our constituents in the halls of power in Washington, D.C. I think we need a teacher in the United States Senate.
Ms. Crockett, your reaction to Mr. Talarico's comments, you have 30 seconds for this.
I agree that we absolutely need a fighter. And when I look at my track record, the track record is in this moment. It's about the fierce urgency of now. We are living in a time that many of us have never seen in this country and honestly never thought that we would see. And so I think that as we see a record number of retirements on the federal level from both the Democrats and Republicans, that boils down to people not being able to fight in this particular environment. I think that I've evidenced that. In fact, James and I served in the state house together. He's actually been elected longer than I have been elected, yet he's not as known right now because I have engaged in these fights, and they have been right there on the front lines where people could see me out front. I think that because of, I didn't get my bad.
Moving on, we're going to stick with you, Ms. Crockett. We have a follow-up question when it comes to electability. What's the political risk that you are willing to take that you feel like your opponent would not take in order to win the U.S. Senate seat?
I think that I will do the edgy things, the things that the political consultants will never tell you to do. Because right now, people are hurting. This isn't about games. It's not about politics as usual. It's not about who sounds as clean as possible. It is about tapping into the rawness of this moment. I have been to Minneapolis and heard the stories of the people on the ground as they are being accosted. And obviously, we've got killings that are going on. And now we have the DOJ that has decided that they want to prosecute the wife of Renee Good. I have been there in California after David Huerta of SEIU had been incarcerated by ICE, and I listened to his story and met with him because we went there. I have been to Chicago. I am here to tell you that I am not just sitting in DC, I am getting out into the streets. And right now, to be perfectly honest, if we're gonna win and keep our country, we're gonna need somebody who can file bills, but also knows how to be a street fighter. And so that is my response.
Mr. Talarico, same question, 30 seconds. What's the political risk that you are willing to take that you feel your opponent would not?
Here's the risk I'm willing to take. Congresswoman Crockett and I are on the same team. I think we've already seen in this debate that there's going to be a temptation by the media to pit us against each other. But we are all focused on the same goal, which is winning in November and stopping a Senator Ken Paxton. And so I'm thinking just in this debate, you're going to see that Congresswoman Crockett and I agree on a whole lot more than we disagree on. And that unity is a threat to the billionaires who want to pit us all against each other and who right now are running this country, running this economy, and we need someone who has stood up to those billionaires in our nation's capital.
We want to move to the topic of immigration enforcement now. As many of you know, there was a deadly shooting involving federal immigration officers today in Minneapolis.
The House this week approved a spending bill that included funding for ICE. Ms. Crockett, you voted against the bill Thursday. Can you explain your opposition and tell us whether you support the idea of defunding or abolishing ICE? You have 60 seconds.
I absolutely voted against this bill. There was no way I was going to continue to pump a historic amount of money into this rogue organization that is going out and is violating people's rights every single day on American cities. I was just not going to do it. At the end of the day, right now, I think that we need to clean house from top to bottom. I ended up signing on to impeachment of Kristi Noem, as well as I call her Cruel Kristi. I signed on to that. But I don't even know, here's my big issue. Right now, we have an administration all throughout that is deciding, yes, these are the laws, but we're just gonna ignore them. They are not following the law. So why are we rewarding bad behavior? And that's basically what it is. This is the 5th highest funded military force in the entire world. And what are they doing? They're killing people in the middle of the street. They decided to execute a mother of 3 in broad daylight. I don't understand how we are sitting here and acting like this is normal. The only reason I'm trying to be respectful of the time.
I do want to ask you, though, would you support abolishing or defunding ICE?
We absolutely have to clean house. Whatever that looks like, I am willing to do it. Because if there are truly Proud Boys that are currently in ICE, that's a problem.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Talarico, how would you vote on ICE funding measures, and do you believe ICE should be abolished or defunded? You have 60 seconds.
ICE shot a mother in the face. ICE kidnapped a 5-year-old boy. ICE executed a man in broad daylight on our streets just this morning. It's time to tear down this secret police force and replace it with an agency that actually is going to focus on public safety. We need to impeach Kristi Noem. We need to prosecute agents who've abused their power. We have to haul these masked men before Congress so the world can see their faces. We should be cracking down on the cartels, not our communities. We should be prosecuting gang members, not small business owners. We should be hunting down human traffickers, not moms and babies. We need comprehensive immigration reform in this country. We need to remake this broken immigration system in our own image. And once we win a Senate majority, we will do exactly that.
Just to be clear, though, would you, in 10 seconds, abolish or defund ICE?
We have seen this historic increase in funding for ICE. That money has come out of our healthcare. So what I would say is that we should take that money back and put it in our communities where it belongs.
Welcome back to State of Texas. We now rejoin Nexstar Media Group's special recap showing of the Democratic U.S. Senate primary debate as we jump ahead in the presentation.
Texas is becoming a hub for AI data centers, which can drive up water demand and utility bills. So how do you ensure the Texans get the benefits of AI without paying higher costs for water and electricity? You have 30 seconds for this.
Yeah, it's not even just the higher costs. Those are actual issues that we're going to have to deal with. But it's also the supply. Right now, we're dealing with the fact that there's a winter storm right here in the state of Texas. We don't know if our grid is going to hold up, and we're talking about these data centers that are actually pulling on us even more. So what we've got to do is, again, make sure that we put a framework around these, but we also have to work not just on the federal level, we have to work at every single level of government with our state and our city and our county levels, because we're going to need some zoning put into place. We're going to make sure, right now, I'm working with one of my cities on a similar issue. We have to make sure that we protect the people that live in these communities first from these dangers. The final point that I'll make about the water, it's not just that they're taking our water, it's that they're polluting our water.
Mr. Talarico, 30 seconds for the same follow-up question. How do you ensure the Texans get the benefits of artificial intelligence without paying higher costs for electricity and water?
I mentioned in my opening statement that I've traveled every corner of this state. I was up in Amarillo, Texas, for a town hall, and I stayed to the very end, meeting with every single member of the community. I can't tell you how many times I heard about the data center being built in Amarillo, and it was done without the consent of the community. And so in the U.S. Senate, I will fight to make sure that these AI companies pay for their own energy and they don't pass it along to consumers. And I'll make sure that we work on sustainable water infrastructure, because Texas is running out of water and these data centers are exacerbating that problem. And so we should tax these companies, we should tax these technologies to pay for that kind of infrastructure.
Let's go ahead and go in depth on skyrocketing healthcare costs.
What do you see as a fix or an alternative to the Affordable Care Act? Mr. Talarico, you have 60 seconds.
Well, I believe healthcare is a human right that shouldn't depend on how much money you make or what zip code you're born into. This is personal for me. I was 28 when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. My first 30-day supply of insulin cost me $684. I couldn't afford that, so I put it on a credit card. That's because Big Pharma has a chokehold on the healthcare system in this country. They have a monopoly on the insulin market. So when I got elected, I took on Big Pharma and their lobbyists, and we passed a $25 insulin copay cap. And then I passed a Bernie Sanders idea through the Texas legislature to import cheaper prescription drugs from Canada right here into Texas. That's the kind of bold leadership we need at the federal level. We have to reverse all the cuts made to the Affordable Care Act, and we have to allow every Texan and every American the chance to join Medicare. I think universal coverage should be a non-negotiable in the wealthiest country in human history.
Ms. Crockett, same question. What do you see as a fix or alternative to the Affordable Care Act? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, so I am a proud sponsor of Medicare for All. I signed on to Medicare for All my first term. I'm currently a sponsor of it. I also signed on to a bill that Lloyd Doggett has. It's called the Care Now Act. And what this would do is force a state like Texas to end up expanding Medicaid. We know that in the state of Texas, we lead in uninsured in this country with over 5 million uninsured. What we've not talked about enough is how many Texans are actually on the Affordable Care Act and how they are impacted by these tax subsidies that were rolled back or allowed to expire in January. I was proud to say that while the Democrats are in the minority, we were able to go ahead and force through a vote in the House on extending those tax subsidies for 3 years. But that's basically a Band-Aid. And frankly, we were able to get that out of the House, but we are still waiting on the Senate to act. I think that this is about making sure that people understand that they want us to be pitted against one another. They want us to believe that there's not enough money to do it all. But the reality is that our budget is about our priorities. We have a multi-trillion-dollar budget. And so if we truly believe that everyone should have access to health care, we can make that a reality with bold leadership.
Welcome back to State of Texas. We now rejoin Nexstar Media Group's special recap showing of the Democratic U.S. Senate primary debate.
Ms. Crockett, you have publicly criticized the U.S. military operation in Venezuela and the capture of Nicolas Maduro. In 30 seconds, do you think the president needs congressional approval before taking military action against a foreign country?
Absolutely. We had a briefing on this issue. I was not satisfied with that briefing. At the end of the day, this president is seemingly trying to plunge us not only into a civil war with ICE, but he's also trying to plunge us into World War III. And he's not trying to stop at Venezuela, which is why we must have a check on him, because he is threatening Greenland. He has decided that he wanted to threaten Cuba, and he's talking about going after Mexico, which happens to be our largest trade partner. He is consistent. If we don't stop him, I am afraid about how many other folk are going to be trying to come after us. We have to stop him in this moment.
All right, Mr. Talarico, you've also criticized the current administration's military action in Venezuela. 30 seconds for the same question. Do you think the president needs congressional approval before taking military action against a foreign country?
Absolutely. We have to confront this new American imperialism seeking to colonize Venezuela and Greenland. And I said in the beginning of this debate that I don't see politics as left versus right. I see it as top versus bottom. This intervention in Venezuela is not only reckless, it is deeply corrupt. Trump promised the biggest oil executives in this country a, quote, great deal if they gave him $1 billion for his reelection campaign. And then he turned around and gave them a gift. He gave them the nation of Venezuela, home to the largest oil reserves in the world. So we have to call out this kind of corruption. Billionaires don't just run our economy. They don't just run our government. Now they run our foreign policy. We need a senator who's going to stand up to those billionaires in Washington, D.C.
Welcome back to State of Texas. We now rejoin Nexstar Media Group's special recap showing of the Democratic U.S. Senate primary debate.
In polls, voters across Texas have voiced frustration with what they see as corruption and special interest influence in Washington. You are in Congress now, so how would you respond to voters who believe the system is rigged?
I agree. I mean, I'm running for the United States Senate because I think that it's time for us to do our best to try to unrig this system. Listen, I'm not a likely story. I didn't come from a family where everybody thought that I was going to end up in politics. And frankly, as I started this off, I said that I hate politics. At the end of the day, we need to do things like you were talking about the enrichment issue as it relates to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has enriched himself to the tune of $1.4 billion since he has been in office in violation of the Emoluments Clause of the United States Constitution. That's just in this term.
All right, we're tight on time. Let's move to Mr. Talarico. A 30-second follow-up question for you. You've touched on themes of moral leadership and restoring accountability and trust in government. If elected to the Senate, what specific anti-corruption measures would you prioritize, and how would they be different from what Washington has already promised but failed to deliver?
Well, I've already outlined some of them: banning corporate PACs, banning super PACs, and banning members of Congress from trading stocks. I also think we need to ban forms of corruption that don't involve money. I think we need a national ban on gerrymandering across every state in this country. I think we need to overhaul the Supreme Court, which we talked about earlier. I think we need to pass term limits so people aren't making a career out of public service. And I think we can require, through federal statute, that every member of Congress hold at least one annual town hall in their districts so their constituents can hold them accountable. That's the kind of anti-corruption package that can restore people's faith in this system.
We want to move to closing statements. Mr. Talarico, you have 60 seconds.
Well, thank you again to the AFL-CIO, and thank you to my friend Congresswoman Crockett for being here. And I just want to thank you all for being committed to this cause of flipping Texas and changing the politics of our state. I got into this because of my students. I got into the classroom in the fall of 2011, right after the state legislature cut $5 billion from our schools. I had 45 kids in one classroom. There weren't enough desks for all those kids, so I had students sitting on the air conditioning unit. It's unacceptable. And that's why I ran for the state legislature. It's why I flipped a Trump district that no one thought was winnable by bringing people together to change this broken, corrupt political system. And that's exactly what we can do in this race in November. We have a moral imperative to win. And I know all of you are committed to that cause.
All right, Ms. Crockett, 60 seconds for your closing statement.
One of the things that you said just a minute ago was a lot of people feel as if the system is rigged. As someone who has seen up close and personal how badly things are working in DC, I have been fighting on the front lines in this corrupt administration. I am willing to take the chances that frankly most are not willing to take. I unfortunately have law enforcement that has to be with me all the time because of the death threats. I'm not telling you that so that you can send me your prayers. I'm telling you that because whoever goes to the United States Senate is going to have to be ready for real war. This is how bad it is. As I was traveling to East Texas last weekend, we received a phone call of a woman whose house they were having to go to because that particular woman had stated over and over and over that she was about to come and kill me. I am here to tell you that it is life or death as we see what is happening in Minnesota and otherwise.
Reminder, the primary will be Tuesday, March 3rd. The last day to register is February 2nd. Early voting begins February 17th. You can check out more of our coverage of all things politics on your station's website, where you can also find a link to watch the entire Democratic U.S. Senate primary debate. Thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. We'll see you next time here on State of Texas.